Well, guys, it looks like the UN's plan and the globalist plan to get the entire world involved in World War III is working flawlessly. As I've said many times, the reason they want to get us all involved in World War III is to destroy the United States of America. They don't want us having hegemony around the world. And, to be honest with you, I'm sick and tired of America playing world police as well, and our CIA going around and interfering with foreign countries' elections. These people that sit there at the pulpit all the time talking about how, oh, democracy, democracy, democracy. We're trying to spread democracy. They're actually going out in many cases and in many countries and assassinating people. I didn't say anything about it, but a few weeks ago now, one of the leading candidates that many people were calling the Trump of Ecuador was assassinated. Well, immediately I thought, man, this smells like the CIA. They do this kind of crap all the time. And what I mean by that is the CIA doesn't actually use, American CIA operatives to do this stuff. They hire locals where, the economies in these places, a lot of these countries, they might be lucky to make $25 a month. And if you drop down, $40,000, $50,000 to someone and say, hey, if you go and assassinate this leader that we disagree with, that we don't want having control, then we'll give you this money. We'll make sure your family gets it. Well, the 6 guys were in prison, and last week I heard they were all killed in prison. Again, makes me think it was the CIA or maybe the Mossad or maybe MI6 or one of these other intelligence agencies around the world. And it was probably the CIA because the United States always has our nose in business where it doesn't belong, and it's coming back to get us. One of the best things I ever heard come out of a politician's mouth was Ron Paul back in 2012, I believe, when he was running for president. He said that a lot of this stuff we're seeing in Afghanistan and Iraq is caused by something called blowback. It's where we go over and we do a drone strike on a village and we're going after one bad guy that we know is there. But we end up killing a whole bunch of innocent people at a wedding or something by accident or whatever. Accident, right? And we kill all these people at an aspirin factory like Bill Clinton did years ago. And all those people have families, and they know that the evil United States of America was the one that sent the drone. And that's called blowback. It comes back to get us. These people are the future terrorists that are going to, suicide bomb themselves or whatever and try to get 72 virgins and all that nonsense. So anyway, guys, shit is hitting the fan. I've been saying it for a long time and how people need to prepare. And we've backed off here on the channel of doing prepping content because, it's like a broken record. I could come on and say the same things. You ought to know by now. You need several months worth of water for each person in your family. You need several months worth of food supply for your family. Long-term stuff, you're going to need seeds and bartering items and things like that I've done videos about that. So go back and watch that. This is about the shit hitting the fan. And United States of America was attacked today. Not our main land, but we were attacked nonetheless. Our military was attacked. So let's get into these headlines. Breaking. Iranian-backed Houthi militants fire missiles at U.S. Navy destroyer off the coast of Yemen. And there's an update. The U.S. intercepted the missiles and says they were actually aimed at Israel. So I don't know. That could be BS. I have no idea. There's all sorts of misdirection coming from every different side that's in all of these multi-headed wars that are going on. And I just want to say something right now off the bat. I'm not pro-Israel. I'm definitely not pro-Hamas or pro-Palestinian. I tend to like the Israelis more, and I give them more trust than I give to the Palestinians, obviously, or the Iranians or anybody else that's is an Islamist. But at the same time, I don't trust Israel and the Mossad and all these people that are actually doing a shadow government that's basically a mirror of what's going on in the United States of America. So this is a very nuanced deal. There's a lot of different angles, a lot of different things and rabbit trails we could go down. I'm going to try to stay on target here and talk about these headlines that I think are super important. All this crap happened today. Report, USS Carney intercept missiles fired by Iran-backed Houthis near Yemen. So, it's unbelievable. A lot of people are claiming these came out of Lebanon, but either way, it's tied to Iran. World War III watch. Drones attack U.S. military base in Syria. Injuries reported. And no deaths as far as I know, but drones were used to attack a U.S. military base. Now, should we have a base over in Syria? Probably not, but that's neither here nor there. We do have one, and U.S. soldiers were attacked today. Many of them were injured. They didn't actually say, they didn't go into a lot of details on how many, but that's how the military is. They're pretty tight-lipped about that stuff. There was another attack in Iraq. Rockets and drones hit Iraqi base that was housing U.S. forces, according to security sources. So, an attack on our Navy destroyer, the USS Carney, an attack on our Syrian military base, and an attack on military base housing in Iraq. 3 attacks today. My opinion is they're coordinated. My opinion is they were given the orders from Iran. Guys, there is no doubt in my mind we are in, or at very least we're entering, the boots on the ground stage of World War III. There has been talk here in our own country about reinstating or, reinstalling, whatever you'd say, the draft. And the reason they're having to do that, we'll get into some of those headlines later, but they're having a hell of a time recruiting people here in the United States of America for multiple reasons. Hamas terrorists used weapons from North Korea in their horrific attack on Israel. So, came from North Korea, right? They came from North Korea, including assault rifles and rocket-propelled grenade launchers that were first sold by Kim Jong-un to Iran. So, again, the more we see, the more this story unfolds, the more we're finding out that Iran and Hezbollah and Lebanon and Jordan and all these other surrounding countries have their hands all over this crap. Kim Jong-un didn't give them straight to the Hamas people. He gave them to Iran, and Iran gave them to Hamas. So that's who your enemies are. Know your enemies. Know yourself. Next headline here. Hamas uses hospitals, churches, schools, and kids as human shields. That's what they're doing. That's why they're trying to make such a big deal out of that hospital attack. Actually, I reported on it the other day. They said 500 people had died in that hospital attack. Not true. We'll get into that story in a minute. So next headline, national security breach? Question. White House posts, then deletes photo of Biden meeting U.S. troops in Israel. So he may have just basically doxed several of our U.S. troops right there in Israel. And they were probably special forces, because usually that's who they send in the early stages of a war. Shocking. Biden responds to news of alleged Gaza hospital attack. He says Hamas needs to learn how to shoot straight. What does that even mean? Hamas needs to learn how to shoot straight so that they will be more effective when they're launching rockets into Israel and kill more people, or so they don't kill their own people. I mean, if something can be said the wrong way, Biden will find a way to do it. On an international stage where everyone sees it, they all see how incompetent he is. Unbelievable. Report, high-ranking Muslims at Biden White House are strongly considering resigning. Islamophobes are targeting them, they say. Love it. Love it. Go ahead. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. I believe the United States Constitution was written for a Christian moral-based backed nation, not Islamic people. That's my opinion. And I guess you're legally and technically allowed to run and hold office as a, Islamic sympathizer at very least, because these people are having all kinds of rallies and protests right now all around the world in support of the murder and decapitation of babies that happened under the initial Hamas attack on Israel. I mean, just atrocious stuff. So the media repeat Hamas propaganda on hospital blast. Israel shows evidence of terrorist rocket was responsible. Hamas sympathizing Harvard students hold a die-in protest. So all hell is breaking loose because these people have been told by the mainstream media that, mean old Israel with all their badass weapons blew up a hospital and killed 500 people. But it's not true. They lied about that. It turns out the rocket or whatever it was that was launched from within. I don't know. Some people were saying it came from Lebanon. Other people were saying that it came from right there beside the hospital. So I really don't know exactly where the rocket came from, but it didn't come from Israel. And they've got video proof to show that. So, I mean, that's pretty compelling evidence that it didn't, originate in Israel. But yet the media is running with that lie. They're not retracting their story, even though every single one of them on the mainstream media a few days ago reported that 500 were killed. So report possibly 50 were killed at Gaza hospital, not 500. So it was anywhere from 15 to 50 people that were killed. You can see when the explosion goes off. They have satellite video of the hospital before and after. And it certainly wasn't from a rocket that was coming in like this. Organizers behind pro-Palestinian insurrection at the Capitol have a pro-terror history. And what will happen to them? Will they be treated the same way that they treated the J6ers? Will they, lock them up for 3 years without a trial or without due process and all that stuff and then decide later on that, they're free to go or whatever? No, they won't. Of course they won't. Even if any of these people, I heard some of them were arrested, but even the ones that were arrested will be handled with kid gloves. Kamala will probably post their bail. That's how far gone we are. So yeah, they're trying to create a Ferguson riot part 2, and the media is spreading the Hamas hospital hoax to create more violence. That's exactly what is happening, because violence sells. There was an old saying back in the day, and I'm sure they still follow this in the media. If it bleeds, it leads. And there's nothing more they love than watching the American people suffer and bleed, and people all around the world suffer and bleed, because it leads. It gets lots of views, and that's what they care about. So we got a lot of crap going on in the Mideast ever since that Hamas-Israeli attack, right? But we can't lose sight of what Biden is doing and what he has created with this situation in Russia. I've said many times, but it bears repeating. So this is, in my opinion, from the research that I've gathered. Putin invading Ukraine was a response to CIA and White House under Joe Biden and Barack Obama meddling. They used Victoria Nuland. They used George Soros's money to start a color revolution back in 2014 over in Ukraine. That is why Putin, in my opinion, invaded Ukraine. If that hadn't happened, if we hadn't meddled way back in the day, then we wouldn't be going through all this crap right now. Russia could actually be a very good ally of the United States again. They were at one time. Things were getting better. Under George W. Bush, believe it or not, things were a lot better with Putin and our relations between America and Russia. Now they're down the crapper, and it's done intentionally by design to pit the world's superpowers against each other. So they'll fight it out over here. We'll all fight it out. We'll bleed red, white, and blue over here. And, Russia will bleed red, whatever colors their flag is, they'll bleed those colors. China will be bleeding their own colors. Iran will be bleeding their colors. You get the point. Over and over and over around the world, every nation that has nukes and is considered a superpower will be in this fight on one side or the other. And the globalists, the super elites, will be standing by in the background. Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, the New World Order will be standing by in the background, maybe in their bunkers, waiting for all the nuclear clouds to go away and stuff like that, the nuclear winter. I mean, a lot of these people like Bill Gates and others have invested heavily in massive, deep, underground bunkers so they can survive nuclear, biological, chemical attacks on the United States of America. Why would they be so worried about that if there wasn't a real threat? So prepare yourself, guys. I mean, do what you can to protect yourself and your family and preserve your liberty in the future, because I'm sure if all this crap goes sideways and we are fully involved in World War III by the time the 2024 election comes around, Joe Biden will use the War Powers Act of like 1973, 1972, whenever it was, to declare martial law and a state of emergency to the point where we will not have elections in 2024. I believe that's why he's not too worried about looking good or fixing any of his policies before the election comes along, because he doesn't care. He doesn't have to win. He's going to stay in power until he says it's safe. And that right there could start a civil war in the United States of America. So I don't know. I don't know what all is going to happen, but all I can tell you is I see the edge of the cliff. And unfortunately, we're already over the side of it with Joe Biden. And now all we can hope to do is grab that rope that's over there and pull ourselves back up and do the right things, protect our own country rather than meddling around the world. At least that's my opinion. People will say I'm an isolationist. I'm not an isolationist, but we shouldn't be doing what we're doing. And you just don't get away with this. You don't get away with going around and fucking with everybody else indefinitely without blowback or consequences. And that's what we're experiencing right now. Now, again, I think this is all contrived and organized by the New World Order. They want this so they can take control. That's why. So they can enslave me and you, or kill us, one or the other. Reduce that population down to the numbers that they said on the Georgia Guidestones, perhaps. So let's get into more World War III news with Putin and the Ukrainian war. Putin threatens the West with total nuclear destruction, leaving no chance of survival in the event of a strike on Russia, as he warns his Satan II and flying Chernobyl missiles are ready for use in ranting anti-U.S. speech. So our media is saying he was ranting and it was an anti-U.S. speech, but we've been doing a lot of shit to poke the bear, so maybe his threats are justified from their perspective. Putin wants to preserve Russia. He said that all along. Of course, now people think that I'm pro-Putin or something because I said that. It's not that. I'm pro-America in the traditional founding principles way, not the way we're doing it right now. Not America World Police. I'm certainly not pro those policies. Putin sends jets with hypersonic missiles to patrol the Black Sea. So there's been a lot of stuff going on. We're sending, high-tech radar equipment. I'm not sure what to call them. These advanced spy planes over the Black Sea. Well, Putin sent up a few jets with hypersonic missiles to patrol the Black Sea. Patrols to give visual control of the Mediterranean, Putin said. Putin says he discussed Middle East and Ukraine with Xi in China. So they're buddying up. They've got the whole BRICS thing back there, their fallback currency. If something happens and the United States is totally out of the picture now, Russia and China can be best buds. And while I'm sure Russia doesn't consume as much as the United States does, I don't believe the Chinese Communist Party cares about that. They would probably like it if they could reduce their population by a couple of million or whatever. They don't care. They've got billions of people over there, like 1.5 billion or something. It's unbelievable how many there are. And so, obviously Putin has resources that China is probably looking at. They have the largest country on the face of the earth, and there's a lot of untapped resources there in Russia. So they're making all kinds of deals together. I even heard them, Xi and Putin were talking about the Belts and Roads initiative. So maybe Putin's getting on board with that as well. I mean, guys, this is, from our perspective, the forming of the axis of evil in 2023, right before our eyes. And we should be, cooler heads should have prevailed at some point and been like, hey, let's pour some cool water on this situation. But no, everything we're doing, we're pouring gasoline on the fire by sending our ATACMS missiles over to Ukraine and letting them blow up Russian military bases inside of Russia. That's an escalation. Everything Biden has done, F-16s, all these other things, sending our tanks, sending troops, putting troops on the ground in Ukraine, all of these things are the cause of World War III, or the trigger, if nothing else. And again, it's all being done. Biden is being controlled by Obama, who is being controlled by people at the UN, the WEF, Klaus Schwab's, all these people, the WHO, the globalists, the elitists, the people that want to reduce the population. This should scare every American that has more than 2 brain cells left. So Putin slams the deployment of U.S. aircraft carriers in the Mediterranean Sea. This is the only article that was from several days ago. I think it was from like 8 days ago. But Putin was basically saying, hey, man, all you guys are doing is making a bad situation worse by sending these aircraft carrier groups into the Mediterranean Sea. And, while I disagree with that, and obviously that looks bad, from Putin's perspective because it gets aircraft carrier groups even closer to Russia, right? They're not right on his door, but they're not on his doorstep, but they're nearby enough where they could launch ICBMs, or they could have, I don't know if they could actually launch airstrikes from the Mediterranean to Russia. Perhaps they could. I don't know. But it's a threat to Russia. That's why they're saying that. And of course, Russia has a lot of control and influence in Syria. They probably have bases just like we do. So I'm sure that's probably got him a little worried because it's an escalation. It's adding more fire or adding more fuel to the fire. That's what's going on. So Putin slammed it, and he basically said, we have hypersonic missiles and, we'll use them. We can also put nuclear warheads on the ends of those hypersonic missiles. And I'm sure one nuke over an aircraft carrier would probably destroy it. And I don't know how many people are on an aircraft carrier, but I believe it's like 3,000 or more. So, and lots of money. U.S. warns every American abroad to be cautious. Well, I think so. I think so. I certainly wouldn't be traveling to any European country right now or any Middle Eastern country right now. Probably not Mexico either. There's just not very many places that I'd be willing to travel outside of the United States of America, because once you cross that border, you're no longer protected by your Bill of Rights and the Constitution of the United States of America. So you're at the mercy of someone else. You're under someone else's thumb, where they could be run by dictators or drug lords or who knows. So if I were you, I'd be keeping my travels abroad down to a minimum. In fact, zero if you're smart. So, Biden's stirring up the hornet's nest in every place that he can. He's pouring gasoline on the fire, like I said. But don't worry, because the military can't meet their current recruitment goals, and they've had to lower standards. But listen to this. Military obesity rates soar, compounding recruitment challenges. How are we going to win when we've got a bunch of pro-LGBTQ, whatever, I'm going to pick on the Marines because they did it, wearing high heels and stuff like this, and doing and implementing all this wokeness in the military, and go up against another superpower, in fact, two superpowers, China and Russia, and now the Mideast, Iran, all of them are going to, reform the caliphate, and they're going to be on the side of Russia and China. Guys, we don't win this. We don't win this war. Services are still struggling to find eligible applicants who meet the physical requirements for enlistment. And that includes a lot of people coming in and failing the drug test. That includes a lot of people that are so dumb they can't even pass the ASVAB or whatever it's called, the basic test to get into the military. They're lowering standards across the board. And if you don't take our thingamajig that I'm not allowed to talk about, you get kicked out. But then we'll call you back, but then you might not come back. So, guys, we're so fucked. We are fucked. But don't worry, though, because the Marines have got our back. They took off their red high heels, and now they're test firing a robot dog armed with a rocket launcher. Again, I don't remember what the last one was. Oh, it was autonomous drones being used by Ukraine. This shit is right out of like Skynet, Terminator stuff, man. What happens when it malfunctions? What happens when the Chinese, who we bought the chips from, turns on some backdoor, access program and turns them against us? We're putting all of our stuff into this military of the future. And I get it. We can't live in the past forever and rely on, past successes forever. But at the same time, we're investing so heavily in all this autonomous drone activity and these drone attacks where, and the military's full of a bunch of fatties. I have a lot of doubts that we could actually go and fight a war like World War II or even Vietnam today. I don't believe the United States military could muster the right kinds of people. And I know there's still a lot of, really great people and badasses that are in the military, but there's also a hell of a lot of pussies in there. A hell of a lot. Think about it. Look at these generations that are, the Gen Zs and the millennials. What kind of people did they put out in their groups? Not to say they're all bad, because they're not, but there were a large percentage of them dyed their hair blue, and they're anti-war, they're pro-Palestine, they're, anti-American family, anti-American values, anti-American in general. So, when the recruiter comes around, how many of those people are going to flee to Canada or to Mexico or wherever they have to go to get out of serving their country? Because they have why would they serve something they want to destroy? They wouldn't. They wouldn't. They would be locked up first. I guarantee you, some of these people on the left would rather be locked up in prison than go fight in war, even if our future and our lives depended on it. So guys, what that means to me is they're going to be recruiting older and older and older people, and eventually they're going to be recruiting people in the 50s, in the 50-year-old plus, because they're going to have to. They're going to have to. And they'll send us out into the killing fields, and, generations and families and everything we've worked so hard for will be lost forever. Because eventually, even though it hasn't happened on a full scale ever, but eventually the United States will be attacked here, either with nukes or with troops on the ground. They'll activate sleeper cells. I mean, there are so many different ways and so many different vulnerabilities that we have right now. Our power grid. I mean, I think a lot of those power grid attacks from a year or so ago, when they were going around and hitting these substations, I think that was a dry run. They wanted to see what they could do with small arms. If they could do that with small arms, what could they do with the North Korean supplied RPGs that they're smuggling up through the southern border, through the wide open southern border that Biden has created by turning on the magnet to full blast? Yeah, guys, things ain't looking good. You better go start prepping. To be honest with you, if you're not prepping at all by now, it's too late for you. I mean, unless you're uber rich, then maybe you could still afford to, but most people can't afford to stock up on 6-8 months worth of food at today's prices, with Biden inflation factoring in. Again, guys, this was all a perfect storm created by globalists, elitists, Chinese, probably, I don't know if the Russians were involved or what, but it was all about getting Joe Biden installed in 2020 and getting rid of Donald Trump, a strong president, for a feeble-minded old person. And I have nothing against old people, but Joe Biden, I don't know if he has dementia, Alzheimer's, a combination of all the above. The guy can't even string a sentence together without making several mistakes. I mean, again, telling Hamas they need to work on their aim, he's out of touch completely with reality, not just with the American people, with reality, and should be removed under the 25th Amendment. But that's only if you have, congressmen that have balls to use it. So, this is it, guys. This is how America dies. Our hegemony, our existence, our freedom, our liberty it'll all disappear in the blink of an eye. So, prepare yourselves now. Do what you can. If you can afford to, build yourself a nuclear-proof bunker. At very least, you might ought to start looking into getting some nuclear, biological, chemical masks and stuff like that for every member of your family, because we may need them. You may want to stock up on duct tape, so in case nukes start dropping, you can at least tape up your windows and your doors and do things to minimize how much radiation you're going to be exposed to. Perhaps it's not like that. Perhaps it's an EMP where they take out, our power grid through using EMPs. Again, I mean, look around you. Do you trust your neighbor? Do you know your neighbor? Do you trust the people over there that are coming with pitchforks to steal your supplies? Do you have means to protect and defend yourself and your family and your supplies? If the answer to that is no, then you need to get to work right now, because the shitstorm is coming. It's only a matter of time before it directly affects us. I think first it's going to hit the gas pumps. We're going to be shocked when we have to pay $8 to $10 a gallon here in the central United States for fuel. And California has to pay $12 to $15 a gallon because of their idiotic communist rules. Anyway, guys, I guess that's enough of a rant for today. I appreciate you tuning in. As always, I stand for liberty to the bitter end. I hope you do too.